February 11th, 1990. Guards are crying, actual tears streaming down their faces as they watch Nelson Mandela walk out of prison after 27 years. 27 years. And he's forgiving them, not next week, not after therapy, right there. And here's the thing that breaks my brain. His Cancer sun in the 8th house predicted this exact moment, the emotional endurance to survive nearly 3 decades in a cell. Cancer, the capacity to forgive the people who stole 27 years of his life? Also, Cancer. But there's a Libra Moon placement that explains why he chose reconciliation over revenge. And the Sagittarius Rising? That's why he walked out with his fist raised, still believing in the vision. His chart didn't just explain his personality, it predicted that he'd change an entire country through emotional transformation. 3 of his guards literally cried watching him leave. That's not normal prisoner guard energy. That's Cancer magic. Quick thing before we dive in. If you love understanding historical figures through astrology, hit subscribe. And I want to know, would you want Mandela's Cancer 8th house placement knowing it comes with the capacity to suffer for decades, or is that level of emotional endurance too intense? Drop your honest take in the comments because this placement is wild. So, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, born July 18th, 1918. Cancer sun, Libra moon, Sagittarius rising. And when I tell you his chart is one of the most powerful I've ever analyzed, I mean it. Let's break this Cancer sun in the 8th house. The 8th house is transformation through suffering, death, and rebirth, shared resources, deep emotional bonds. When your sun is here, your entire identity is built around enduring pain and turning it into power. This is someone who will sacrifice everything and then forgive everyone. Moon in Libra in the 11th house. That's justice for the collective, not revenge. Justice, fairness, diplomacy. This moon placement is why he could sit across from the people who imprisoned him and negotiate instead of destroy. Sagittarius rising gives you the visionary optimist, the philosophical teacher who believes change is possible even when you're living in a 7 at 9 cell. Venus in Taurus means his values couldn't be corrupted. They tried. For 27 years, they tried. He didn't budge. And Mars in Virgo in the 10th house, methodical, precise activism. He wasn't impulsive. Every move was calculated. His chart made him someone who would see an entire nation as his family. And Cancers will die for their family, literally. Nelson Mandela was born into Thembu royalty in Mvezo, Eastern Cape. His father was a chief and counselor to the Thembu king. But here's where the Cancer story starts. His father passed away when Nelson was around 12 years old. Now, if you know anything about Cancer, you know that loss of family at a young age imprints on them forever. Cancers need belonging. They need roots. They need to know where home is. And when his father passed, Nelson was sent to live with Yongintaba, the acting regent of the Thembu people, at the great place in Monkekezweni. This is classic Cancer adaptation. When your home shifts, you create a new one. He didn't just survive this transition, he thrived. He listened to the elders tell stories of ancestors who fought in wars of resistance. Even as a kid, he was absorbing this idea that protecting your people is noble. That's the Cancer protective instinct activating early. He attended primary school in Kunu, where his teacher, Miss Medingane, gave him the English name Nelson. He moved through Clarkberry Boarding Institute, then Healdtown, a prestigious Wesleyan school. His Libra moon was already showing. He learned to listen first, speak last. Diplomacy over aggression, then University College of Fort Hare, the only institution for black South Africans at the time. And he got expelled for joining a student protest. That Sagittarius rising vision of justice kicked in, and he couldn't just sit there while injustice happened. The regent was furious, told him to return to Fort Hare or face an arranged marriage. So Nelson and his cousin ran away to Johannesburg. Cancer energy hates being controlled, especially when it comes to their future. He worked as a mine security officer, met Walter Sisulu, started working for a law firm, and completed his BA degree through correspondence courses. By 1943, at age 25, he'd earned his degree. His Virgo-Mars work ethic was in full effect. Nelson Mandela joins the African National Congress. He's 25. And from this moment, his cancer protective instinct finds its purpose. He didn't join the ANC for glory. He joined because he saw his people suffering and couldn't stand it. Cancers can't watch their family hurt. And he decided that black South Africans were his family. In 1944, he co-founded the ANC Youth League with Walter Sisulu and Oliver Tambo. That same year, he married his first wife, Evelyn Mace. Cancer needs partnership, needs emotional security. But here's where it gets complicated. His Mars in Virgo in the 10th house means his work became everything. He wasn't balanced, he was driven. In 1952, he and Oliver Tambo opened South Africa's first black law practice in Johannesburg. They specialized in cases resulting from apartheid legislation, defending people against a system designed to crush them. Classic Cancer move, protect the vulnerable at all costs. But the government was watching. Starting in 1952, Mandela was intermittently banned, severely restricted in travel, association, speech. December 1956, he was arrested with over 150 others on charges of treason. The treason trial dragged on for 5 years. 5 years. And eventually, in 1961, everyone was acquitted. But during this trial, his personal life imploded. He divorced Evelyn and married Nomzamo Winifred Madikizela. Winnie. He was 40. She was 22, standing at a bus stop in Soweto when they met. June 14, 1958, they married. They had 2 daughters, Zenani and Zinzi. This is where Mandela's Cancer sun in the 8th house becomes critical. The 8th house rules transformation through crisis. And the crisis was coming. March 21, 1960, Sharpeville. Police opened fire on peaceful demonstrators protesting past laws. 69 people gone, unarmed, peaceful, and the country erupted. Days later, Mandela burned his passbook in front of journalists. Symbolic, defiant. The ANC was declared illegal. Mandela and other leaders went underground, and here's where his chart does something wild. He argued for a military wing within the ANC. Cancer, the emotional nurturer, said we need to fight back. Because here's the thing about Cancer energy, when you threaten their family, the crab claws come out. This wasn't aggression for aggression's sake. This was protection. In June 1961, the ANC executive agreed. Umkhonto we Sizwe was born, spear of the nation. Mandela became its leader. He traveled extensively, meeting freedom fighters across Africa. His Sagittarius Rising made him a natural networker, someone who could see the global vision. But in August 1962, he was captured. Just like that, arrested. He was 44 years old. They sentenced him to 5 years for leaving the country illegally and inciting a strike. But then, in 1963, police raided Liliesleaf Farm in Rivonia and arrested more ANC leaders. Mandela was brought back to stand trial with them, the Rivonia trial, and on April 20, 1964, during his trial, Mandela gave a speech that changed everything. During my lifetime, I have dedicated myself to this struggle of the African people. I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But, if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. Cancer sun in the 8th house, willing to sacrifice everything for his family, for his people. June 12, 1964. 8 men, including Mandela, sentenced to life imprisonment. June 13, 1964. Robben Island. Mandela arrived as prisoner 4664, the 466th prisoner in 1964. And this island, it was designed to break people. For 300 years, it had been a prison and leper colony. The warders greeted them with, "This is the island, here you will die." Mandela was classified as a Class D prisoner. Lowest grade, least privileges, hardest punishments, worst conditions. 1 letter every 6 months, 1 30-minute visit every 6 months. His cell was 7 feet by 9 feet. Thin mat on the floor, single blanket, bucket for a toilet. Black prisoners were forced to wear shorts and sandals even in winter. Other prisoners got long pants and shoes. They had to break rocks in a limestone quarry. No talking, no singing. Back-breaking labor in the blazing sun. The limestone dust was so intense it damaged Mandela's eyes permanently. Here's where his Cancer 8th house placement becomes everything. The 8th house is about transformation through suffering. And for 18 years on Robben Island, Mandela transformed himself and everyone around him. He created community in the quarry. They called it the university. Prisoners taught each other, shared knowledge. Mandela, with his Libra Moon, saw even the guards as human beings. He learned their language, Afrikaans, asked about their families, treated them with dignity. And slowly, some of them started treating prisoners with dignity too. That's emotional intelligence at a level most people can't comprehend. In 1968, his mother passed away. They didn't let him attend the funeral. In 1969, his eldest son Thembi died in a car accident. They didn't let him attend that funeral either. Cancer's worst nightmare, losing family and not being able to grieve with them. He wrote to Winnie, talking about the anguish gnawing at him. But he didn't break. His Taurus Venus kept his values intact. His Sagittarius Rising kept him philosophically optimistic. Years passed. Slowly, conditions improved. By the mid-1970s, he'd been elevated to Class A prisoner. More privileges, more letters, more visits. Prison authorities allowed journalists to visit Robben Island. They wanted to show the world conditions weren't that bad. The journalists encountered a tall, thin man in prison clothes leaning on a spade. His expression, intense hostility, but his bearing? That of a prince, not a prisoner. That photograph became iconic, a prisoner working in the garden, but really, a Cancer sun, cultivating life even in a place designed for death. Mandela spent his time gardening, growing things, nurturing, because that's what Cancers do. Even in hell, they create something beautiful. In 1982, after 18 years on Robben Island, Mandela and others were transferred to Pollsmoor maximum security prison in Tokai, a suburb of Cape Town. Conditions were better. He could have contact with his family. Winnie could visit. His daughters, Zani and Zinzi, who had to wait until they were 16 to see him, could visit more often. But something was shifting. The government was feeling pressure, international sanctions, internal resistance, violence escalating. In 1985, President P.W. Botha offered Mandela a deal. Renounce violence and you can go free. Mandela's response? Legendary. What freedom am I being offered while the organization of the people remains banned? Only free men can negotiate. A prisoner cannot enter into contracts. Cancer stubbornness when defending his values. He wasn't leaving until the terms were right, not just for him, for everyone. In 1988, Mandela contracted tuberculosis from the damp prison conditions. He spent 6 weeks in Tygerberg Hospital recovering. Then he was transferred to Victor Verster Prison in Paarl. And this is where it gets wild. The prison gave him a private cottage, a swimming pool, a cook. The government was preparing him for something. They'd started secret negotiations. His Libra Moon diplomatic skills were about to change history. Here's where Mandela's chart reveals its full genius. Cancer sun in the 8th house. He transformed suffering into power. Every year in prison made him more resolved, not less. His emotional endurance was superhuman. Most people would have left that prison filled with rage. He left it filled with vision. Libra Moon in the 11th house. Justice for the collective, not revenge for the individual. He could have burned South Africa to the ground. He chose reconciliation. Because his moon placement made him see that true justice means everyone gets to live in dignity. Not just his side. Everyone. Mars in Virgo in the 10th house. Methodical activist. Even in prison, he was strategic. He learned Afrikaans to understand his jailers, studied their culture, built relationships with guards. When they offered him freedom in 1985, he refused because the terms weren't right. That's not impulsive, that's calculated. Sagittarius Rising, the philosopher king. Even in a 7x9 cell, he believed in the vision of a democratic South Africa. His rising sign gave him that unshakable optimism. The ability to see beyond the present moment, Venus in Taurus. They couldn't corrupt his values. They tried everything, isolation, loss, suffering, temptation. He didn't budge. Taurus Venus is immovable when it comes to core principles. Throughout his 27 years, you see these patterns repeat. He created family wherever he went. The prisoners became his family. He protected younger inmates, mentored them, made sure they were okay. Classic Cancer, He maintained emotional composure even when guards tried to break him. That eighth house emotional depth meant he could go places internally that most people can't access. He forgave over and over. His Libra Moon meant he saw everyone's humanity, even people who'd stolen 27 years of his life. And here's the thing that destroys me. His chart predicted all of it. The suffering, the transformation, the reconciliation, the leadership. It was all written in his placements. December 1989, President F.W. de Klerk took over, and he knew South Africa couldn't continue like this. Secret talks with Mandela had been happening. On February 2, 1990, de Klerk announced he was unbanning the ANC and releasing Mandela. February 11, 1990. Mandela walked out of Victor Verster prison at age 71, 27 years, 9 days, and he walked out with his fist raised. The crowd was massive, people who'd never seen his face because photographs of him had been banned for decades. But they knew his name. They knew what he represented. He gave a speech at Cape Town City Hall that day, hundreds of thousands of people listening. And he didn't call for revenge, he called for unity. Classic Libra Moon. In 1991, at the first national ANC conference held inside South Africa since the ban, Mandela was elected ANC president. His lifelong friend Oliver Tambo became national chairperson. 1993, Mandela and de Klerk won the Nobel Peace Prize together for dismantling apartheid and leading South Africa toward democracy. The man who imprisoned him and the man who was imprisoned, sharing a prize. Because Mandela's Libra Moon saw beyond personal grievance. April 27, 1994. South Africa held its first democratic elections. Mandela voted for the first time in his life. At 75 years old, can you imagine? Fighting your entire life for the right to vote, spending 27 years in prison for it, and then finally, you get to vote. The ANC won 62% of the vote. May 10, 1994. Nelson Mandela was inaugurated as South Africa's first democratically elected president, the first black president of South Africa. And in his inauguration speech, he said, "Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another." His Cancer sun, protecting the entire nation now. As president, Mandela did something that shocked the world. He established the Truth and Reconciliation Commission headed by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Instead of trials and executions for apartheid crimes, they created a space for truth-telling and forgiveness. Victims and perpetrators sitting in the same room, facing each other, healing. That's Cancer 8th House transformation on a national scale. In 1995, South Africa hosted and won the Rugby World Cup. Rugby had been seen as a white-only sport, a symbol of apartheid. And Mandela showed up to the final wearing a Springbok jersey with the team captain Francois Pienaar's number 6 on the back. The overwhelmingly white crowd of 60,000 people started chanting, "Nelson, Nelson, Nelson!" Mandela walked onto that field and united a nation through sport. That's Sagittarius Rising vision in action. He only served one term as president. True to his word, he stepped down in 1999. Most people kind of power don't let it go. Mandela did. Because his chart wasn't about ego, it was about service. On his 80th birthday, July 18, 1998, he married Graça Machel, former First Lady of Mozambique. Cancer needs partnership. Even at 80, even after everything, he wanted that emotional connection. In 2004, at 85, he retired from public life. He said, "Don't call me, I'll call you." Spent more time with family, created the Nelson Mandela Foundation, the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, the Mandela Rhodes Foundation. Still nurturing, still protecting, still building. December 5th, 2013. Nelson Mandela passed away peacefully at his home in Johannesburg. He was 95 years old, and the world stopped. His legacy is everything his chart predicted. Cancer sun in the 8th house meant his identity was forged through transformation. He turned 27 years of suffering into wisdom, into power, into forgiveness. That placement made him willing to sacrifice everything for his people and then forgive everyone who hurt him. Libra Moon in the 11th house made reconciliation more important than revenge. He could have torn South Africa apart. He chose to heal it. Sagittarius Rising gave him that unshakable vision. Even in prison, he believed in democracy, in equality, in justice, and he lived to see it. Venus in Taurus meant they couldn't corrupt him. For 27 years, they tried to break his spirit, compromise his values, make him bitter. He came out the same man who went in, just wiser. Mars in Virgo in the 10th house made him a methodical, strategic leader. He didn't rush. He calculated, he built, he transformed. And here's what breaks my heart about his chart. The 8th house is transformation through suffering. He had to suffer for his vision to become real. There was no shortcut. His Cancer sun needed to endure those 27 years to become the leader South Africa needed, and he did it. He walked into that prison at 46 and walked out at 71. Lost his mother, lost his son, lost decades with his daughters, lost 27 years of freedom, and he walked out forgiving. That's not human. That's cosmic. That's a Cancer sun in the 8th house operating at the highest possible frequency. His Libra Moon made sure the suffering wasn't pointless. It led to justice, to reconciliation, to a new South Africa. And his Sagittarius Rising made sure he never lost hope, never stopped believing. Nelson Mandela's chart didn't just explain his personality, it explained his destiny. He was always going to suffer. He was always going to transform that suffering into power. He was always going to forgive. He was always going to lead, and his people were always going to be free. That's what happens when a Cancer decides an entire nation is their family